Hey guys, this is Azra here, and welcome back to Game 2 of Swiss Round 4. This is going to be the final round before we head into the double elimination. And once again, we've got Damien Allen on the left and Mark Mottram on the right. Damien is playing Argus Security, a super heavy agenda trap deck with some really interesting little splashes. And on the right hand side, Mark is playing his Leela Patel again. So what I wanted to just mention before we sort of get into this one is these guys kind of shuffle up and deal out their first hands. There was a lot of discussion as we went into the fourth round for the day. Wow, that's a 3 agenda hand there that's going to get mulliganed. And there was a lot of discussion on the day about intentional drawing. Now, the top 4 players at the current time in the Swiss all decided to intentionally draw, or ID as it's known, to draw their last rounds because basically they knew they were safe. Mark and Damien both sort of called me over to have a bit of a chat with me as I was hosting the event to talk about what they were going to do, and I think Mark was having a really kind of close look to really see if he was going to intentionally draw and potentially make the cut, and I think they decided at the time that it was sort of going to be too tight with them sitting roughly about the 5th and 6th positions at this time, that they could be circumvented if they didn't in fact win their games. So it's worth noting that the ID, I definitely think it's worthwhile. It's a rule that's here to stay. It's an interesting one no matter what side you fall on it, but I think the guys who kind of went and won, 3 games or 3 rounds back to back, they decided to kind of take the luck and go with the ID. So heading off, turn 1 then, Damien's going to install Hedge Fund Beanstalk Royalties, a pretty fantastic first turn out of him. He's going to get himself some money. Pass the turn back to Mark. What does Mark have? He has Desperado. Oh, he has an account siphon actually, and Damien's HQ is wide open, but he's going to draw click 1. Is he going to Desperado? He is, and then we're going to see an account siphon. Damien currently sitting on, what's that? 12 credits? Security testing, and is he going to siphon? No, he's going to draw actually. Okay, so quite surprised there not to see the siphon come out of Mark. Meanwhile on Damien's side, oh my word, it's install. 3 cards straight down in the servers, leaving 1 card left in hand, and Mark now left with an interesting choice. Going to bank job actually, and immediately run, get that paid off, get his little Desperado credit on top as well, so that's going to pay him off rather nicely. And wow, is he going to now account siphon as well, try and get a bit of pressure and take the economy while he can, or is he maybe kind of scared about what might happen if he does float tags? So 2 account siphons inside job, and is that a legwork in hand? He's having a bit of a think here about what to do. Oh, looks like he's thinking about running. Oh, he's actually going to roll some dice to see which card he's going to run. He's going to run the middle card. And successful run. And oh my word, it's a dedicated response team and a snare. And that's that. Now look, I actually knew the result of this game because on the day, these guys came up and spoke to me after, and what an absolutely brutal way to go. Essentially the snare doing 3 net damage, and because he finishes the run with a tag, the dedicated response team does 2 neat damage. Mark only had 4 cards in hand, and that just killed him dead. Now, on the left-hand side, you can head back and watch the first game between these 2 for round 4, game 1, or you can click the link on the right as we head into the upper bracket in those beautiful Maya mats. Now, some of you may have noticed there's quite a lot of video actually left on the end of this one. And what I've done actually is done the first ever really Netrunner and kind of personal blog where I've talked a little bit about what's happening in Netrunner for me and some of the things I've been encountering. So for those who'd like to watch the matches, click one of the links. And if you'd like to come along and listen to me rant for a little bit, please stay tuned. Hey guys, this is Azra here, actually in person, not something I do very much on the channel at all and haven't done in quite some time. Obviously we watched quite a quick game there with a bit of a freak occurrence between Damien and Mark, and I wanted to use this opportunity to do a little bit of a vlog, chat over some things that have been running through my mind, and talk first of all about what happens when you have a game like this at a regional. In this case, Mark's flown over from England, and I hope he doesn't mind me chatting a bit about this, but he's obviously flown over, attending a regional. You've got to consider preparation, flights, food, travel, hotel, all sorts of different things. At this point, as I mentioned in the video, they were right there on the cut. Damien and Mark talked a lot about whether they were going to intentionally draw, and in the end, it was Mark, I think, who really kind of was thinking about it a lot. And in the end, he actually told me that he was glad he didn't intentionally draw, because if he had done and used the ID ruling, he would have actually come ninth, looking at the way the standings actually finished up in the Swiss on the day. So he made the right decision to play. Unfortunately, he came up against this 1-3 Argus, really horrible turn 2 situation where the game was just over like that and chances blown out the water, and he knew for sure he wasn't making the cut. And I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. And I want to chat a little bit about myself here before I ask a couple of questions of you guys and how I feel about casual and competitive play. Because for me, some of my most enjoyable moments have been through casual play. Like I've done things like hosting cube drafts at my house. We've run core events where we've had communities just offer spare alternate art cards and then leftover playmats that people had doubles of and give them back to the community. And I've even done things with my friends like little theme games where you play things like Adam versus Director Haas and a kind of mother versus son story thing. And a lot of casual Netrunner things bring me a lot of enjoyment. That being said, though, I love the competitive aspect of the game. It's something that I really do buy into. I've had a good time winning store championships. I've never won a regional. Hopefully something I'll be able to do in the not too distant future. And at the moment, it's something I'm working towards. And for me, I struggle very much with balancing how much I enjoy casual versus how much I enjoy competitive and which I want to go towards. And I'm curious to see, first of all, from you guys, what aspect of Netrunner do you enjoy the most? Is it the game? Is it the social side of it? Is it the lore side of it? Or do you enjoy the challenge of piloting a deck or building a deck and refining it? Or is competing a thing you really get reward from playing the game? For me personally, in my local meta here, it was really interesting to talk to Mark. Mark told me about, he's played against Dave Hoyland, who he considers one of the best players in the world. Seems like a really genuine, nice guy. Any games I've seen of his have been really, really high level, and compared to practicing, a couple of nights a week for regular, regimented type practice for competitive play, as Mark mentioned he does with the likes of Dave and his friends, and we don't really have that so much here in Belfast in our meta. We do have a growing meta, lots of new people, lots of people with under a year of play under their belt, and a lot of different things chopping and changing. And to talk personally for a moment again, and I'm probably going to say that many times, even though this whole thing will be quite personal, I've tried playing competitive decks and I end up feeling a bit bad about it. I actually have had played against guys using decks like Dan D'Argenio's Hot Tub Time Machine and had guys just be like, why would you even play that? And I'm like, because I want to learn it. I want to practice with it. I want to be aware of what's winning regionals right now. And I feel like if I don't learn it, I'm putting myself at a disadvantage and I'm not finding any great way to get that regular play. And the last thing I want to do is make anyone sort of feel bad and not enjoy the game, because for me, the most important thing about Netrunner is enjoying it, is having a good experience, is having a laugh. And thankfully, we meet every week on a Wednesday night, and 9 times out of 10, all the games are great, enjoyable, very often super memorable. And that's what I want it to be. But balancing that casual fun, enjoyment, and just making memories with friends versus getting high level competitive play is a tough thing that I struggle with, and I'm curious to see what other people do. Funny enough, today I was actually just listening to the Winning Agenda podcast, which if you don't listen to, absolutely do. Episode 88, another cracker, and they actually talked a little bit about the mentality of going to a competitive event and just being happy with reaching the cut and then not really maintaining your A game in the cut because you're just happy with doing that, and then being a little bit disappointed after maybe not keeping that competitive mindset that you could, and going into future events and trying to do that. And I think for me, I struggle with being competitive but still being good sportsmen, giving a really good game and hoping that both players really get a lot out of it. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit again about something else, something I've struggled with, and it's the social aspect of Netrunner. I get a little bit anxious at times. I do have a little bit of sort of panic and fear and uncontrolled and sort of unrealistic fear at times of how people perceive me and how I make other people feel during the game, because the last thing I want is someone not to enjoy themselves. And in my early Netrunner days, I've been playing for about two and a half years now, and in my early days, my first year for sure, I lost many games at competition level, at store championships and regionals and such, by being too nice, by telling guys, oh, you don't need to spend that credit to break that subroutine because you don't have any programs or you don't have an AI breaker. Or I would actually find myself mid-game like consoling or trying to like energize my opponent to say, don't worry, like if they get negative and say, oh, I've lost, this is done, I go, oh, don't worry, you're still in with a chance. And I'd actually end up taking my focus away from my game and putting it on theirs. And the last thing I want to do when I get competitive and when I get in the zone, as I'm sure many people who've played at these kind of events can relate to, I find myself I get quite quiet. I get quite focused, and I can be a little bit more stern or a little bit more just kind of short, I guess, with what words I'm using because I'm focusing. But the last thing I want to do is ever give off a negative, vibe. I have met a ton of nice people playing Netrunner from the north and south. Great to meet guys from Glasgow and England when I was lucky enough to be able to run the Bangor regionals, that you've obviously been watching along with, hopefully. And a lot of them have different styles, different ticks, different traits. Some of them can remain very positive and bubbly and play an amazing game and just be really cool. That's not really me, if I'm honest. If I lose a game, it does affect me. If I feel like I've got a little bit inward and a little bit introvert and sort of negative on myself, I sometimes go back a round or two later and say to my opponent, sorry if I was a bit quiet there, it wasn't anything against you, I was just giving myself a bit of a hard time. And 9 times out of 10 they hadn't even noticed. It's just me berating myself. I guess what I wanted to ask of you guys as a secondary question on top of what you get out of Netrunner is also, have you ever found yourself struggling to find motivation to play, or have you ever had to overcome any barriers to play? This might be financial, if you're struggling to kind of pay for the game. It might be a meta thing where your meta is maybe very small, or you had to travel a lot of distance to get regular games, or have you ever had anything like personality clashes and things like that? And I wanted to use this vlog actually as a bit of a final note on a personal level to get something off my chest that's been on it for a while, and I hope that kind of by putting it out here it'll stop buzzing around inside my head. We have about, I'd say, maybe a dozen or so people that regularly play in our meta, which is fantastic. And unfortunately, one of them I don't really gel with. We don't get on personality wise, so we don't really play that often socially. We have met a few times at events and it's been fine. But a couple of months ago over Facebook, this person basically told me that every time they see my face, they want to punch it. Now that's not something, if I'm honest, I handled very well. I think that they even said it as a bit of an off-the-cuff thing and may not have thought much about it, but for the past couple of months it's actually really stuck in my head. Both when like running events and competing, even now thinking about it, which is stupid, but anyway, I get a bit tense, my shoulders go, my neck goes, my heart sort of goes, because it's something that's unresolved to me. And you can't, not everyone's going to like you, you can't get on with everyone, it's not how the world works. But to have someone who you have to kind of spend time with around this hobby, just because you're going to have situations where you're going to encounter each other, and have someone just say that as an off-the-cuff thing really affected me. And I'm no Chris Helmsworth, I'm no, good-looking guy, but I never thought I could ever come across in such a way that would make someone say, I want to inflict physical violence upon you, just by looking at you. And that's something I've really struggled with, and it's something I am probably going to continue to struggle with, although on a personal development note, I really need to learn to get over it. And I think I tried to be the bigger man, I guess. I just tried to say, I don't feel I've done anything to antagonize you. I don't feel like I sort of warrant that, to which I got no reply, which was really depressing me because it feels unresolved to me. So I'm really curious to see from you guys, when you look at communities online, you look at Team Confident, The Winning Agenda, Terminal 7, Run Last Click, Dodge Pong, Dan Spinoza, probably got his surname pronounced wrong. Loads of fantastic, fun, energetic communities out there. Hear awesome things about things like the Glasgow and London metas that aren't that far away from where we are. And you always hear positive stories. And I never want to be the one person that brings up negatives, but I do feel like this is probably a rare occurrence. It's in 2.5 years, it's really only the one thing that's really been a super negative experience for me, and I do struggle with it. That being said, Netrunner as a whole is a fantastic game. I think for me, I love the game, I love the rules, I love the mechanics. Whether you love or hate industrial genomics and museum and all these kind of things that come along and that people like to hate, the game itself is great, the lore is great, the art is great, everything about it is great, and I hope to be playing it for many, many years to come. There's always going to be little speed bumps along the way, and I think that's just something, you have to sort of learn to deal with, and I'm definitely trying to stay on top of. And I think the thing for me is I want to try and be a positive light for the community. So I want to try and be someone you guys can learn from, someone experienced players can get a really good game from, somebody watching on YouTube can hopefully get a giggle or a laugh, or just even enjoy watching a game. I know myself, if I was paying by the minute or the hour or the month even for how many videos I've watched of Kivs, for example, or Dodge Pongs and Peach Hack, if I paid, a monthly fee for how much of their stuff I watched, I'd probably be broke, because going to bed at night, sitting on lunch break at work, and over dinner, I love watching that stuff. And if I can even be half as a positive influence as I can be, as those guys are, then I'll be happy. So yeah, look guys, thanks so much for watching along. Hopefully none of you run into any snares dedicated response teams in the final round of Swiss at an event you've had to fly for anytime soon, and I hope Mark doesn't begrudge me too much having a giggle at that, because just absolutely awful stroke of luck. Not sure when I watch this back if there'll have been much of a point to what I said, but do let me know, what is it about Netrunner that keeps you playing, and if there's anything you do to reinforce yourself when you need to be motivated to play, when you want to try a new deck, when you want to stay in or get more competitive, what is it that makes you get there? Because I'd love to know. Thank you so much guys, as ever, for watching. This is Azrael, and all the very best.